Sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim, and thank you all so much for all the love and support you will shower me here with. I am grateful and you are super sweet. So today we'll be talking something very important, and it's about this Asian woman. I think she said she was born in Thailand and then she grew up in Georgia. So she has black skin. And people are asking how come how she said she has an accent, and that is black accent. She talks like a black person, acts like a black person, and all that. And black people are asking them why do they always do this? Like, they think like proximity to blackness also make them black, right? And they use that black accent when it is not convenient, when it is convenient. When it is not convenient, it is see them straight up switch to whom they are and all that. And some of them do not respect black people and do not respect, they call black people's accent a ghetto, right? But they also want to act like a black person. But I am saying that if you want to act like a black person, you want to use black accent and all that, first of all, you have to respect the people that you are taking that from. Not just straight up stealing that from them and acting like them when it is convenient, but when it is not convenient, it's them switch straight up. They want a black people's rhythm, but they do not want your blues. You know what? Let's get into this video.
First of all, what? Yes, I have an accent because I ain't from here. I was born in Thailand, and I grew up in Georgia for a decade.
Let me ask y'all a very valid question, all right? Try to stay here with me, try to stay right here with me. Why is it you take a group of non-black people forcing their black sense, okay? One of them is from Utah, one of them is from Florida, one of them is from New York, one of them is from Wisconsin, one of them is from California, one of them is from Texas, right? You take all these non-black people forcing these black scents, you put them all in the room together. Why do they all sound the same? They all have the exact same forced black scent. Now, they're going to sit there and tell you, oh, it's because, I grew up around black people. I grew up around black people. That's very interesting because when you're at home with mom and dad, all that goes out the window. You haven't grown around black people when you with mom and dad. And I'm going to tell you the reason why is because it's not because you grew up around black people. It's because you fucking stole that goddamn accent from the internet. Because how is it all of y'all sound the exact same no matter what state in the US of A? Okay, you get a non-black person with a forced black accent, they all sound the same. There might be tiny different inflections and dialects because, okay, yeah, different states, blah, blah, blah. But y'all know what I'm saying. Also, you never, ever, ever hear a black person saying or doing this type of shit. Like somebody on Twitter just said, like, oh, you never hear a black person say, oh, I grew up in Flushing around a lot of Koreans, so that's why I speak with a Korean little accent. No, that does not happen. Because again, y'all love just stealing everything of ours. It's just inevitable for non-black people. Y'all just can never leave us alone. So I'm not buying it, and I don't care what nobody says. I don't care where you grew up. I just do not believe it. I really don't. I'm sorry. Forcing these black scents, you put them all in the room together. Why do they all sound the same?
Reason why all black scents sound the same is because they don't see black people as human. You see, the black community does have to worry about not being seen as a monolith, but these black accents prove that black people are seen as caricatures as well. That black accent that you hear is their best interpretation of what they think black people sound like. And this is a universal understanding. If I ask you to name a character that uses a black accent from a movie or a TV show, is that character considered the bad apple? No, truly think about it. Is that character with the black scent basically the rebel in that movie or TV show? That's because there's a universal understanding that blackness in itself is inherently bad. That's why you see some type of aggression or even attitude within their black scent. It's because it's supposed to be synonymous with blackness. And that's the thing. Black people don't have to do bad shit for black people to be seen as bad people. Literally, the creation of race did that for us. And the reason why non-black people change their black accent when they're around family is because the white standard is still there. It's like dressing up as a vampire. You could put the fake fangs on, you can dress like them, you can even say, I wanna suck your blood. Imagine your family member just randomly walking in acting like a vampire for no fucking reason. you're gonna find that weird because they're not a fucking vampire. And that's the same for black people. Because I guarantee their parents gonna say some shit like, why do you sound so ghetto? Why are you acting ghetto? You feel me?
In Thailand, and I grew up in Georgia for a day.
Let me ask y'all a very valid question.
So y'all should really go watch her video on what she's saying about it, but I just want to chop it up as simple as this. Let me go over to Korea for 1 year, come back speaking in K-drama, and say it's because I grew up around y'all. I bet y'all find that really offensive.
Saying. Also, you never, ever hear a black person saying or doing this type of shit.
Just for that part of your video, I will say I'm a black person that does that type of shit, but only with my Latin folks, Puerto Ricans or Mexicans. Not something I try to do, but I grew up doing it. My mom would often call me a monolingual, bilingual, because I will take the dialect and maybe sometimes the tone of whoever I'm talking to. But since I grew up around Hispanics, Humboldt Park, Chicago, it really only works with them because that's instilled in my brain. Is that a filter? I'm just good looking. But it doesn't happen when I speak to any other, where's my fucking car? Any other race of people. What? Testimony.
Of non-black people forcing their black sense, okay?
I agree with her. It's 100% forced. I went to mostly black schools growing up in Little Rock, Arkansas. Graduated 2003, John L. McClellan. 98% African-American school. And yeah, I was part of that 2% white. And I talk like this. I don't speak with a forced black accent. My wife doesn't hear a hint of it. So if you grow up around black people and you talk with a black accent, it's completely forced and it's fake. I had a friend spoke, like I do. We would speak to each other, but if I called them up and they had a friend next to them, immediately black accent, and I'm like, why are you talking like this? You don't talk like this around me. Like, who the hell? That is like I don't know. That's like a weird psychological thing to me. Because if you're going to switch how you talk, I know that scares me. There's something. Oh God, sorry. I was doing something with my nose earlier. Like my best friend in high school was a black gentleman named Roland, and yeah, I didn't pick anything up, like accent wise. There's like, I like to think there's like a little sprinkle of something there, but the fact that I know who John B is not a good example. Why are you laughing? Oh, and Gerald Levert. I know who Gerald Levert is. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Don't speak with a forced black accent.
Oh, it's because, I grew up around black people.
Why do they all have the same argument? It's always, well, I grew up around black people. Like, they all say that as if all black people speak like that. Like me, for example, I was born in Jamaica, grew up in New York, lived there for 14 plus years. And if I don't say, hey, I lived in New York, you'd probably never guessed it. And I went to school with the most New Yorkiest people. I hung out with them. I dated them. And somehow I managed not to sound like anybody that I hung around with. I dated a Russian for 4 plus years. And when I say Russian, I mean Russian. I hung around with his Russian friends, went to the Russian barbershop. But you don't hear me talking about, in Russia, we eat the snow. We make bed in snow. Cold, we don't get cold. We get vodka. What the
A non-black person with a forced black accent, they all sound the same. There might be tiny different inflections and dialects because of...
And therein lies the problem that the black community has with forced black accents. Go back and watch the video. But basically, the point of our video is people that grew up in LA don't sound like people who grew up in Oakland. And it's literally the same state. And people who grew up in New Orleans don't sound like people who grew up in the Bronx. Because we give birth to that. It comes from us. So how is it that everybody sounds the same when they're non-black and they have a black accent? It doesn't make any sense. If you was born in Thailand, but you grew up in the Bronx. Why you sound like you from New Orleans? Like, just stop. It's okay. Just stop. Thank you.
These black sets, you put them all in the room together. Why do they all sound the same?
I have a theory. And before I go into it, I really implore you to watch the rest of that video. I knew this essay would come in handy one day. December 8th, 2021, I submitted an essay called Pain by Perception. And in that essay, I speak about the characterizations of black women and how they have gone on to demonize and overly sexualize black women and how they do so, like through media and music and movies and things of that sort, right? Out of the many avenues of characterization of black women, I thought the most important were the Mammy, the Sapphire, and the Jezebel. For this specific instance, I want to talk to you about the Jezebel. Here's a direct quote. The hypersexualization of black women is a direct link to the Jezebel caricature. The traditional Jezebel was a light-skinned, slender mulatto girl with long, straight hair and small features. She more closely resembled the European ideal for beauty than any pre-existing images. Jezebel is seen as a more tasteful and acceptable depiction of black women due to her features aligning to those more Eurocentric beauty standards. Though not being a darker skin tone does not absolve her of what her stereotype perpetuates. Jezebel is a sexually promiscuous being that has no control over her sexual urges and impulses. Her willingness to be seen, touched, and used is an excuse to absolve white men of their faults, of their own sexual deviance. Images of Jezebel's caricatures can translate through constant sexual exploitation of the black female body in music media. Music has been known to influence culture, art, and social standards and ideals that are deemed acceptable. Now that we have a little bit of a background about the Jezebel caricature, here's my theory. My theory is that because of the fact that women have, specifically black women, has been depicted a certain way in music, media, and movies, people who pretend to be us have picked up on the caricature. They think that is who we are. So when you see motherfuckers like lovely Mimi and that girl from the previous video, she's Jezebel. They want to be Jezebel. Like, I don't know. I don't know, because that's not a black woman to me specifically. You know, obviously I see these people putting on black scents. I'm someone who's black and I'm someone who's perceived as a woman. So with my existence being as such, I personally do not see me being that way. But because of the fact that we have been depicted like that in media, they do. So they think that even though we know that's not who we are, they think that it is. So they're going to steal it. Because come on now, even though we have been demonized so much throughout history, because we are so resilient in our culture and just bouncing back, they want that too. Black women have been forced to be strong, have been masculinized, have been sexualized. Like, come on now. And in that, they have remained like your idea of like strong, right? That's not the same idea as strong for me. I hate that word personally. But at the same time, Black women are extremely resilient and they want that. But you can't have it. You cannot imitate the gorgeous. Goodbye.
What? Yes, I have an accent because I ain't from here.
You know, I'm all for, Black power and defending our shit, but this shit getting ridiculous. So we just gonna pretend like when we dealing with a biracial person, we can always tell when the mama is white and when the daddy is black by how they sound and how they talk. We gonna really do that? We not gonna acknowledge that, like, when Black people from all around the world grew up with all white people, they all talk the same and talk proper. Come on now. Let's not do this. Come on now. When I was a kid, around 11, I left Chicago and went to Utah. Stayed in that bitch. Salt Lake City, Utah, Jordan. If you know, you know. Okay? A Black person is like a period on a white sheet of paper in Utah. Real talk. When I came back to Chicago, I was talking like my name was Bethany or Amber. It took me a year or two to stop doing that shit because people kept asking me why the fuck I talk like that. And it was annoying. My people, Black people. And I ain't even gonna hold you. When I be taking my order from the Asian people, or I'm in the motherfucking nail salon without even thinking about it. Subconsciously, I get to talking like them. I get to, and they only talking to me like this because they can't enunciate English the way we can because we grew up here. And I'm sitting here talking just like they talking, a character of how they talking. And I'm not even doing it on purpose. But something in my mind figures that they'll understand me better if I start breaking down my language the way they do. And that might not even true. And then later on, I'll be feeling guilty, like, ooh, I hope she don't think I was being racist. I hope she don't think I was being funny. Oh my God. And it be on my conscience all day. And it's not even done consciously. So come on now. Y'all be doing too much. I came back to Chicago talking like a Valley girl. It took me like 2 years to stop doing that shit. 2 years. So, nah, y'all just be targeting people. Y'all be it just be given to me, a person with this type of experience. It just be giving me that y'all just being hateful, like for no reason. I'm sorry.
What? Yes, I have an accent because I ain't from here.
All facts. And to add to that, why do they also feel the need to say the N-word? Like, that doesn't make you black because you grew up around black people. Like, we already know most of the black accents are forced. And sure, like, where you grew up can have an effect on how you act, how you speak. Like, look at me, I grew up in predominantly white spaces, which is why I sound like this. But that doesn't make me act white, doesn't make me any less black. I don't know why people thinking that they grew up, it's always black people too, because people just love to copy black people and black culture so much. And when we say anything about it, they're like, it's not your culture, it's not this and that, like, we didn't copy you. Like, so where did you get that personality from? Where did you get those ideas and fashion trends and hairstyles from? Like, they just copy stuff, black people, like, stuff they see on the internet, and then they imitate it, act like they did something. Like, y'all didn't just make that out of nowhere. You know where you got that from. Like, they'll be saying the N-word, they'll be appropriating black culture, wearing box braids, the acrylic nails, hoops, all that stuff that, you know, they copied from black women, and then say that it's because they grew up around black people. It's like, that's fine, but as long as you're being respectful. The only thing that pisses me off is the fact that they feel like that makes them black, that they're part of the black community. So, like, a lot of them will either say the N-word or feel like they can be disrespectful to black people, especially when we try to educate them on certain things. They're like, I don't care. Like, okay, so why are you disrespecting a culture that you're literally trying to be? I don't get them.
Also, you never, ever hear a black person saying or doing this type of shit.
So I think it's time for us to be a little honest about what we're actually saying here, because I feel like there are things that some black people just don't understand. There are only two races in which this shit really happens. And one of them is black people. But the other one, every race does, including black people. White people, what the fuck? The easiest way I can really explain this is that how people like to call white people the gatekeepers of like any type of financial or like job related movement in the US of A. Black people are the gatekeepers of like the cultural movement here in the US of A. And what that means essentially is that we have been the cool people shit for decades at this point, arguably more than that. And so if you don't want to be considered not cool or ostracized or whatever, you kind of had to come through this melanin here, this melanin wall. Because black people want to sit here and act like we don't do that white voice shit. Now, granted, if you grew up in certain areas, it's not really a white voice. I always hate the term white voice to begin with, just like I hate the term black voice. But the point is, it comes and it derives from a certain type of culture. Because me, who grew up in like the South, but also grew up around like a lot of, I went to like private school. So the way I talk is would be considered normal with a little bit of slang into it. And as a black person, I know as a fact that I have to sometimes re-slang my language around other black people, because if you're the only person in a room who doesn't speak like everybody else, regardless of your race, motherfucker's about to roast you because you different. Because that's what kids do. That's what we do. We take any differences we have and we make fun of you. That's why if they're in a room full of skinny people and you're the one fat guy, you better get roasted to oblivion for being overweight. Kids always have a habit of wanting to fit in, right? So if everyone else speaks in this slang language and you don't, it's social suicide. So what a lot of kids ended up doing was adopting that language. Now, there are plenty of these kids out here, or young adults, who are doing this shit still and didn't even grow up in those environments. But why? It's because black shit is cool shit. So we adopt language that works. Because as much as black people will sit here and tell you how much they hate it, there are hundreds of black people who've given them cosigns for speaking the way they speak in. So what the fuck? I do find it a little ironic, though, that when we do it to white people generally don't give a shit or even approve of it. But if you do it to a black person, they act like you've stolen some shit. Even though it's the same survival tactic, just in a completely different social situation. When you do it at a white person at a job, you're doing it to get some money. So, oh, it's fine. You try to make some bread. But if you do it because you ain't trying to get your ass beat because you're the only Asian kid in class in a room full of like predominantly black and maybe like Mexican kids, then all of a sudden it's a problem. I'm just saying we need to keep it real about what's going on, and that black people do it the same way. We just do it to white people. That's literally it. The irony is that it doesn't do anyone any benefit to call it black sense or a white accent or a white voice. It doesn't do you any good to call it, because what you're doing is homogenizing your entire people into a certain way of speaking. But it's one of those culture things. So white people don't really give a shit if you speak proper English. Black people give a shit because they act like it's a part of their culture. And I'm like, yeah, but you also made that culture popular and were somehow surprised that people started adopting it. We do the same thing with new shoes. We do the same thing with new clothes, new artists. We do the same shit with things that are popular as children. And for some reason, black people are sitting here surprised that people would start adopting the language of all the people they fuck with who speak in a certain kind of way. And guess what? They all speak with slang. I'm not even saying none of this shit is right. You should never try to adopt a language to like seem to be perceived a certain way. But I also recognize that as a child, especially, it's a survival tactic. And even as a young adult, because you don't hear about old Asian, Mexican, Indian people changing their language like this. It only really happens with the younger generation. Why? Because these motherfuckers don't want to be the only lame motherfuckers in the class who don't speak somewhat similarly to them. Because that's grounds on roasting on God. It just is. The funny thing is, it's not even specifically a black or white thing. I'll give you an example. If you're a fan of like Japanese and Asian culture, you probably know about the term weeaboo, which is literally the same thing. Someone who's so obsessed with it because they think it's the cool culture, they adopt habits and language from that culture. That's why if you talk to a bunch of hardcore anime fans, you're probably going to find someone in there who throws in Japanese in the middle of their language. Hell, I do that. I used to do that when I was a kid. Is that shit right? Fuck no. It's some goofy shit. But you know why you do it? Because you thought it was cool. Come on, bro. How many of us have sit here and called out anime attack names or switched into like a Japanese accent? We didn't grow around Japan. We just thought the shit was cool. So we fucking... I'm not going to say it. I was going to say something. We borrowed it. We Columbused it. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord! I just think people need to be honest about why things are the way they are and what those things come from. And black people need to stop sitting here acting like we don't do the same shit. We do. We all do. Because it's what we do. We try to adopt and gain behavior patterns, and as children we're still trying to come up with a strong sense of self and gain our own confidence to be who we are, and some of us are still trying to figure that shit out. So we're gonna fucking make mistakes, and some of those mistakes are throwing away our own culture and heritage for the sake of surviving. And at the end of the day, you have to come up with what you think is more important: preserving who you are as a person, or being able to live the next day without getting your ass whooped or made fun of because you're different. And if being different is even a bad thing in the first place.
So this is all I got from the stitches and people with different opinions and all that. But I am going to say that I'm not going to say that that I understand how it feels for somebody to speak to take somebody's culture or speak like a particular kind of people and all that. And then they still make fun of how black people speak. That is just the only problem I will say that I have with people trying to imitate or trying to act black. Because, I mean, the accent she's trying to put on, Aquafina, right? The accent she's trying to put on is black accent, right? So they are going to do all this and still call how black people speak ghetto. That is where I have problem with anybody doing black accent and all that. And I rarely see black people come out on the internet and try to, like, do white sand, or I don't know, or act white, or act Asian or act Hispanic. I don't know how, but then yeah, that is how I think. Like it is rare. But then you come out on the internet, you see them speaking black sand and then also using the N-word. And when you ask them, they will tell you I was born in Thailand and I grew up in Georgia. And you all know maybe where she grew up is predominantly black place. That doesn't make you, I don't know. Proximity to black people does not make you black. I think that is the right thing to say. Because some of them, I see some of them, some videos, some using the N-word, or like, when you ask them, they tell you that, yeah, I live with black people. I know a lot of black people. I mean, it is not a get pass that you have, like you have black friends, or you live where black people live, does not make you black. You still have to respect their culture. And, don't act all weird and all crazy, because I really don't know, like, it's just, I'm just trying to, like, how am I gonna look trying to probably act like maybe a Russian woman, or or probably an Indian woman. Okay, maybe an Indian woman, or trying to speak, I mean, Indian accent. I just don't know how. It's just gonna, it's already looking crazy to me, But I think, yeah, these are the things black people go through. They all want to act black. They all want their black rhythm or the blues, not until there is this for that. They will see all of them run out. And yeah, so if you are going to act black, if you are going to use black scent and all that, respect the people also that have that, because where I have a problem is when you do not respect them, and you're telling me that you grew up in Georgia, or you grew up in Texas, Houston, Texas, where it is predominantly black people. So that makes you, like, speak black, or that I don't know, you have a lot of friends. That's why you have black scent and all that. And then you all are going to come together as a people, maybe like the Asian. You also hear them saying so many trashy things about black people. So in conclusion, respect the people you are trying to act like. Not when, I mean, it's they want to be black, or they want to act black when it is convenient, right? Then when it is not convenient, you see them straight up switch up to their own thing. You go why? I hope you get what I am saying. So that is all I got to say. Respect whatever you want to borrow from anybody. Don't act like. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.